Hello again. Today we are going to cover Chapter 7, International Trade, Exchange Rates and Macroeconomic Policy. Okay, so as recommended by the book, by Gordon. So before into that analysis, it's important to differentiate between three economic policies that would be followed by the countries. Okay, so we have three principles of three policies. Anyway, free capital flow. This, if the country are applying or pursuing that policy, so they are not resisting any flows to come to the country and any flows to go out. Freely capital can come into the country and go out from the country. Also, we have fixed exchange rates. So some countries can have fixed exchange rate, like they keep their exchange rate to fix, not to fluctuate over time. Okay, so sovereign monetary policy is another one, which is like they have independent monetary policy. They can control the currency, okay, or monetary system. Okay, now, so there's a principle which is given here, trilemma or impossible trinity. Okay, so every country can be at A position, B position, or C position. So no one can be here in the middle. What do we mean by that? If a country is at A position, so they can have free capital flows and fixed exchange rates, but they have to give up sovereign monetary policy. So they don't have control over their domestic monetary policy, like European countries. Okay, if a country is over here, B, they have a free capital flow policy and sovereign monetary policy, so they should give up fixed exchange rate. So they cannot be, their currency cannot be fixed because capital is freely coming and going. Okay, if a country is here at C point, therefore they have a fixed exchange rate regime, okay, and sovereign monetary policy, like they have a control over the monetary and currency system. So they should not allow capitals come to their country freely and go out from the country freely. Okay, so overall what we cover here regarding the international trade and monetary policy and exchange rate, we should always remember this trilemma. Okay, impossible trinity. So now here, so here's what we were talking about, given the example over the past picture here. Okay, so for example, the EU, Euro, common currency. Okay, they have a common currency, free flows of capital between countries prevent individual country from pursuing independent monetary policy. So they don't have a independent monetary policy, so they don't have this one. They are here. Okay, they have no fixed exchange rate, but the exchange rate is the same with the other union countries. Okay, So the United States has a flexible exchange rate and free capital flow, so it can run independent monetary policy. Where is United States? Is here, B. Okay. Free capital flow, sovereign monetary policy, flexible monetary policy, so no fixed exchange rate. Okay. So let's get in with the concept of international trade. Okay, so we have balance of payments, which is symbolized or abbreviated as BOP, balance of payments, over here. Okay, this measures all transactions, economic transactions between a citizens or a residents within a country and the rest of the world. Okay, all outflows and inflows in detail. Okay, and the governments are keeping this at zero. The balance of payment should be balanced. It means it should be zero or very close to zero. Why? Because this balance of payment consists of many different accounts, which sub-accounts, many of them. Okay, so if there is a deficit in one of these accounts, there should be a surplus in another account which offset the deficit of the previous one and get this to be close to zero or positive, slightly positive. Okay, so the two major accounts of balance of payment are current account, capital account. Current account records the nation's current interactions, international transactions, including export and import, net export, net income from abroad, and net transfer payments. So net import and export, we know that, either goods or services. Net income from abroad is like, for example, I'm giving you an example. So ExxonMobil company, whatever they make an income, they are multinational companies and they are working in many different countries, including Kurdistan. Okay, so whatever they earn here, their net income will go back to the United States, the base. That's net income from abroad. Okay, or for example, Komar University has a US instructor, professor. So the net income will go back for this professor, will go back to the United States, and that's the net income from abroad. Okay. Also, we have net transfer payments. Like you are living in the United States and you want to help your father and mother, your brother, and sending money to them, transferring some payments to them. You are not paying for any good and service. You just a gift you're giving them. Okay, so that's a transfer payment. So what's the major second account for balance of payment? Is capital account. So by its name we should understand it's about capital. So capital flows. Okay, any purchase of sales or sales of foreign assets by domestic residents, as well as purchase and sales of any domestic asset by foreign residents. Okay, so European buy some capital or some assets in the United States, or some US guys buying in London. So assets here we mean financial assets actually. bonds, stocks, or other assets. Okay, so the sum of these two accounts constitute actually the balance of payment, which is very, very important. Here, for example, here we are talking about the debt. Okay, debt over here. So, which is net borrowing or indebtedness, like, okay, current account deficit must be financed either. Whenever we have minus, negative value of current account, this can be financed by borrowing. So the government borrows some money and distributes it. And net borrowing from, so borrowing from foreigners or from central banks anyway. So a nation's net international position is the difference between all foreign assets owned by the nation citizens and domestic assets owned by foreign citizens. Net international investment position, current account balance plus net revolution. So by revolution over here is, we mean that like any fluctuations because of the change of these financial assets, okay, interest rate or exchange rate, whatever, affecting them. So yeah, let me zoom in this one. The current account balance and the net international saving position, investment position. So balance on current account. So we see that during the history, almost always, we have a negative current account in the United States. Okay, of a half century. And also net investment position is the same. From this time becomes negative. Okay, so alright, I think we skipped, okay, we skipped this slide. Here is how the current account looks like. Okay, so this is the sum of current account and capital account. But the numbers over here are a little bit different. That's as it's noted here. They give a note here that the net balance of payments are given, not they didn't calculate this. It's given as it is, okay, from the website of this website. So as I said, these are the two major accounts, but there are other accounts, okay, so we don't mention them at this level. Now, net income investment is positive over here. Okay. Here, one question arises. So you would expect that the large negative U.S. international investment position would make net income more and more negative. Look at this. Look at this. Here, as I said, all positive, but because of net international investment position over here, all negative. So one would expect that to be negative. The reason is the U.S. is the United States citizens that buying assets out of the United States has a higher return than the foreigners who the asset owned in the United States. Okay? So we subtract the second one by the former, and that's how we get this. So because of this, we have positive net income. Okay? Now, current account and national account. The national account or national saving is a sum of positive private and public savings. Okay, so this is private savings and this is government saving. If this becomes positive, okay, revenue, government revenue minus government expenditures. Okay, now if we remember the magic equation, T minus G equals net I plus investment plus net export minus national saving, private saving, sorry. So we rearrange this equation and we end up with this. Okay, so by borrowing, the current account would be normalized. Okay, so simply foreign borrowing rises because investment increases and national saving falls. Okay, so NX stands for national saving in this equation. Oh, sorry, this one. No, NX is net export. Okay, so another thing which is very important to know whenever we talk about balance of payment, Bob, too small. Let me, okay, balance of payment. So any transaction will be debited and credited here. Okay, debit, when we register, when we record any transaction between the nation's resident and the foreigners will be debited and credited here. So any payments from the nation or domestic residents to the world would be debited. Okay, any payments. Credit any payments from the foreigners to the residents or to the domestic country would be registered as a credit. Okay, so any transaction will be given to you. You should know whether you are crediting that one or debiting, and which account under which account you are crediting. Okay, Now, coming back to this table, I want to tell you some more information. So any account here consists of some sub-accounts. Whenever we have balance of payment, which is always negative here, so in order to make this positive, the government interferes to one of these sectors and they do something in order to rebalance the balance of payment and make it zero. Okay, so let's move to the second topic over here, exchange rate. So what do we mean by exchange rate? Exchange rate is the value of the nation's currency in the amount of other currency or other nation's currency, money. Okay, we know what is it. So there are two quotations to express the government's the currency. Okay, so one of them is convention. So here we express the value, one value of $1. Let me write this down for you. So assume we are in US, home country. Okay, so convention, if we use the convention method, we say that, for example, Japanese yen. So we state it in this way. Anyway, let me copy this symbol because it's not easy to find now. Okay, to S. So how we read that when we say it's the value of $1, the value of $1 in terms of Japanese yen. Okay, what about the exception? What about the exception? So for example, if we have this value now, exception, if we have this value now, so what do we say here? The value of foreign currency in dollar. Okay, the value of $1 in a foreign currency, the value of that was the convention. The exception is telling us the value of the foreign currency in dollar. Okay, so if the value of the dollar increases, goes up, we say that dollar is appreciating. Okay, has appreciated. But if the value of dollar decreased, we say that the value, the dollar depreciates. Okay, for example, in this example, here, if it becomes 48, it means depreciation. Okay, or let me specify that dollar depreciates. Why? Because the value of dollar decreased and the value of euro appreciates. Okay, and if it becomes, let's say 35, it means US dollar appreciate. Okay, appreciates. Okay, euro decreased, it means dollar is getting stronger. Okay, here is some representation of them exchange rates. However, nowadays you can watch it online. Okay, as I do. There are many websites. This is one of them. Go in and see the fluctuation of dollars and all the pairs of currencies. Okay. So, what are the factors that affecting what are the factors that affect exchange rate? So simply, answer is supply and demand. Okay, so supply and demand for that currency determines the value of that currency. Okay, but there are many factors that affecting the supply and demand. Okay, why supply increases, why does demand decrease? Okay, so why do people, when the people goes to buy dollar, dollar appreciates. Okay, many people goes, it means demand increases. So why people hold dollars? To buy US goods and services, to buy US denominated financial assets. Okay, safety of holding. Like for example, right now during the COVID-19 crisis, many people run and buy dollars. Okay, why do people sell US dollars? To buy foreign currencies. Okay, to import to the United States. Okay, here's the, okay, some fluctuations over here, and here is the supply and demand function of United States, of the dollar currency. Okay, dollar supplied and demanded. This is the quantity and this is the exchange rate of dollar. So in this example is euro per dollar. Okay, demand curve, supply curve, wherever they intersect, that specifies the exchange rate. Okay, and what are the, as we said, what are the factors of this demand curve that can shift to this side, that can shift to this side, the same that can shift to this side or go to that side. Okay, so see, if it goes to that side, increases. If supply increases, the value decreases over here. So demand is because US export capital inflows. Okay, and supply is because of US imports and capital outflows. Okay, yep, that was it. And okay, so whenever government wants, they can interfere through the central banks, and they can affect the fluctuation, the exchange rate. Okay, how this mechanism works? Sometimes they want to stimulate exports. They want to stimulate exports. So what they do, they devaluate, they increase the supply of the money, and they lower the value of the money than any goods or services that the foreigners will buy from this country will be cheaper, so this stimulates exports. That's what China is doing, okay? That's what China is doing. They have a huge reserve, and they can stimulate exports. They can keep the exchange rate very low because of huge reserve, and that's why they can stimulate export. And that will be through central banks and other stuff. Okay, so what is the real exchange rate? Real exchange rate is the exchange rate that we see, but that has been adjusted for inflation. So just an advice from me: whenever you see real economy, real GDP, real interest rate, real exchange rate, whenever you see the real word in economy, it means this has been adjusted for inflation fluctuations over here. So how we calculate it? This is the nominal exchange rate. Actually, this is the real exchange rate. This is the nominal one. So price in the home currency, it means inflation in our currency, divided by inflation in the foreign currency. Okay, so this tells us that inflation is one factor that can affect the exchange rate. Okay, and there's a theory behind that, which is so-called purchasing power parity theory. So this theory tells us that the price for any identical goods, such as Big Mac, McDonald's, Big Mac burger, should be the same in other countries. Okay? Otherwise, there is a problem in the exchange rate of these countries. Okay? So how we calculate that? Nominal exchange rate equals the change in exchange rate actually equals the difference between inflation in the foreign country and the home country. Okay, here is one example over here. The Big Mac perspective. Okay, I'm going through one of these examples and explain it to you. Now, according to this table, I understand that can be very small, but let's go for Sweden one. Saudi Arabia, okay, that one in the bottom, okay? Just focus on that. Now, so one Big Mac costs $3.73 in the United States, okay? In US. One Big Mac costs 48.8 Swedish kroner, okay? In Sweden. Now, the actual exchange rate, okay? Actual exchange rate is 7.37 US SEK. It means that 1 US dollar is equivalent to 7.37 kroner, Swedish kroner, okay? So given this exchange rate, so let's see how much one Big Mac costs. 48.8 divided by the exchange rate 7.37, which equals to $13. Okay, $13. Or let's say the exchange rate should be $13 per SEK, Swedish kroner, according to the Big Mac. And this is the purchasing power parity actually. Now, so 13 minus 7.37 divided by 7.37 gives us 65% overvalued. Okay, so the Swedish kroner is overvalued by 65%. So according to this theory, this can come down. So, but actually this theory holds for many countries over here. Okay, for example, this one, Australian dollars vs US dollar. So it's only 3%. It means it works. Okay. So pound, you see, Canada, Chile. Who was this guy? Japan. So it works there. Okay, it works really for them. But for some other countries, it doesn't work properly. Okay, so let's get back to our slides and see what else we got here. So this is the difference between real exchange rate and nominal exchange rate. Okay, sometimes during some periods the real exchange rate is lower than nominal, but after the other periods becomes higher than nominal rate. But it's important to know that both have the same trend. They go together. Okay, here we have a gap. It means there's a inflation over here. Okay, there's a real inflation over here in the United States. Okay, so we have some exchange rate systems, flexible ones that allow for the currency to fluctuate, to go up and come down. Okay, like like Japanese yen, like Turkish lira, like pound, euro. Okay, so having the good reserve, they will maintain this one. But we have also fixed exchange rate. They don't allow to move. How they do it? To have a great reserve. Okay, great reserve. So whenever they want, they can lower the price of the currency and or increase the price. So when they decrease it, it calls devaluation. Okay, it's not like depreciation. Devaluation was made by government. And when they raise the value of the currency, it means they are revaluating the currencies. It's not appreciation. Appreciation is will occur as the function of the market, supply and demand in the market. But this one happens because government deliberately wants to do that. Okay? Very important to differentiate between appreciation and depreciation, and also the revaluation and devaluation. So this figure shows the volume of foreign currency official holdings of dollars, okay, as the percentage of GDP. So as the GDP growing, increasing, the reserve also increasing. Okay. So what's the relation between net export and the foreign exchange rate? So if income increases, both so the case is net export affected by both income and net and exchange rate, okay? It will be affected, no choice. This is for sure. When income increases, so people, in addition to the domestic goods and services, will think to import foreign ones. Okay, so net export increases. It means imports increase, export decrease, or import increase given the export fixed. Okay. For example, if your income increases, you don't buy furniture here, and even not in Turkey, you go for Italy to buy for your house. Okay. Another one, if the exchange rate increases, so it costs more when you buy anything from this country because it becomes more expensive to you, and imports will be cheaper. Then net export decreases as well. Okay, so if exchange rate increases, net export decreases. That's all. Okay, so self-real net export. Look, when exchange rate increases here, the mirror shows us net export decrease. Okay, when it decreases, this increases. Okay, when this goes up again, real exchange rate increases, the net export decreases again. Up to this moment, here is the financial crisis 2008. So it's not that normal. But during the normal time it is, but even here is the same. Okay? Now, what about interest rate? How interest rate affects the exchange rates? Okay. So when the interest rate alone in the United States has effect on the exchange rate, but it's not the alone. Okay, so the interest rate in the United States should be compared by other countries' interest rate. If there's a big difference between them, it means that, or if the interest rate is greater in the United States, greater by a big difference than the other countries in the world, so the demand for the US financial assets will be higher, and this makes the currency or nominal exchange rate of dollar to go up. Okay, so if the change, it's given here, if the change of interest rate or if the difference of US interest rate, the home interest rate, and the rest of the world foreign interest rate is getting larger, it means the demand for the home financial assets will be higher. Consequently, the exchange rate will be higher. Okay? Here is the real effective exchange rate and real corporate bond rate. Okay, left scale. Okay. This is the corporate bonds. So we see like they are going here parallel. Okay. When this rate of corporate bond increases, the exchange rate increases. When it decreases, this one is decreasing as well. And they have the same shape. Okay? They have the same shape over here. Okay? So what about the exchange rate under perfect capital mobility? So first of all, what's capital mobility? What's perfect capital mobility? So occurs when the investors regard foreign assets as a perfect substitute for domestic assets. When investors respond instantaneously to an interest rate differential between domestic and foreign assets by moving sufficient assets to eliminate that differential. So this occurs when there is a free capital flow. Okay, so the investors, when they see the interest rate in the other country is higher, so they can easily flow their money out to that country and invest it there from to get higher interest rate. Okay, now if the country are pursuing fixed exchange rate, any stimulative monetary policy or contractionary fiscal policy will not reduce the domestic interest rate. Okay, but instead cause the loss of foreign reserve holdings, because this country will try hard to keep the exchange rate fixed, and they are using their reserve for this matter, so they lose their reserve. Okay, but what about flexible exchange rate? Okay, in terms of monetary policy and fiscal policy, so this type, this generates an excess supply of dollar. So when supply increases, the US dollar depreciates. But interest rate will be unchanged. Okay, so this assumes small open economy. So what do we mean by that? Small means it is this country, this economy is small to affect the rest of the world. Okay, and open means they have trades and transactions with the other countries. It's not a closed economy. Okay, so here is the consequences of perfect capital mobility. Okay, on the exchange rate. So now, small open economy ISLM model with the fixed exchange rate. Very, very important. Okay, and very well clarified in these slides, so I'm just going over it and no need for further clarification. And very important. Okay, this slide shall I add the text? Okay, I can do it. Sorry. Very important slide. Important. YS. So the same is for the following slide. Just remind this, okay? Anyway, so for monetary expansion, money supply increases, okay? LM shifts to the right. We know that. Normally, interest rate decreases, but let me draw it for you so you understand what I'm talking about. Let's say we have here, this is Y and this is R, interest rate. Here is LM IS. So we are here at this rate and at this level of income, economy, okay? We are here. So now, when government money supply, this is under the fixed exchange rate. When money supply increases, LM shifts to the right. Yeah, so basically this one shifts to the right, okay? Comes here. It means income increases to move to this side and R decreases, okay? So perfect capital mobility implies a huge financial capital outflows. When it decreases, huge capital outflows. So pressure on exchange rate to decrease, okay? Nominal exchange rate to decrease. So central banks must buy US dollar or reduce the money supply by selling holding foreign reserves. Ultimately R stays unchanged and ineffective monetary policy. So monetary policy will be ineffective in this rate, okay? In this case. Now, fiscal policy expansions. So when the fiscal policy, so you just remember that whenever we talk about fiscal policy, we talk about IS curve, okay? The equilibrium in the good market. So fiscal stimulus shifts IS to the right. Normally exchange rate will increase, interest rate will increase and even income will increase. But perfect capital mobility implies a huge financial inflows. So this pressures to the nominal exchange rate to increase. Okay. Central banks must sell dollar. So the reserve will be sold over here. So LM shifts to the right as well. Okay. The ultimate result, interest rate will stay unchanged, but the income increases. Okay. What about in the flexible exchange rate regime? Monetary expansion shifts LM to the right. Normally interest rate decrease and income increase, but perfect capital mobility implies a huge financial capital outflows, and nominal exchange rate increases, net decreases, net export decreases. So IS curve shifts to the right. Okay. So consequently, interest rate is unchanged, but income increases. So what about fiscal stimulus? IS curve shifts to the right. Normally interest rate increase and also income increases. But there will be capital inflows, in exchange rate increases, net export decreases, and IS shifts to the left. So both will be unchanged. So it's ineffective. Okay. Here's the detail and other clarification of this, and these are summarized over here. Yep, that was the end of this chapter. Thanks for your attention.